So our church in the 20th century emphasized putting this feast of Christ the King on the last weekend of the church year. And to take a look, and as you look at our whole life, our whole year, or a day at a time, is Jesus Christ really the King of our lives? Now, that term we're not comfortable using anyway, but if we can understand it this way, is Jesus Christ really, and are we open to his being the most important influence in our lives, in who we are, what we do and don't do, what we think, what we feel, what we share with others? And in saying that, obviously, Jesus Christ wants to be the most important influence in our life. But now here's your question, and you'll get extra credit if you raise your hand. Okay, why? Why does Jesus Christ want to be such an influence in our life? Take a moment and ask a few brave souls or extroverts or whatever you are to comment. Okay, gave you a moment. You don't need a moment. Who wants to say, who's willing to say something? See, they all get shy, reserved. If I come back and stare at you, you know, like the teachers did, huh? You want to say anything? No? You're allowed to say, get out of my face, priest. I've had a few do that through the years. Who's going to say something? I'll bet one of you. How come you're looking down? Huh? You're in Ohio State. Are you in mourning? Ohio State game. I'm just calling on you to lift you up. So why does Jesus want to be an influence in our life? I know you got something.
I mean, he always wants us to live through his faith in our day-to-day lives, just like to reflect his image.
Okay, see, very good. He wants us to live and remember him and be in our lives his presence for one another. Who else? Anybody want to add something? Sure.
Well, he wants to save us, and he wants us to recognize that there is no political or earthly power that is bigger than him.
Okay, good. He wants to save us. He wants to free us up. And he wants us to recognize, good point, that no earthly or military power or political power is greater than the power he wants to have with us and for the sake of the world. And as we see that, fundamentally, and we've heard it so much, and it can be just a slogan, God sent Jesus Christ, first of all, to show us how much he loves the whole human family and calls us to be that way with and for each other. And as we see that, it's probably important for us to reflect, because it can be a cliche, oh, God loves you, isn't that nice? But when we look at it, again, what Jesus wants to do for us, there are so many people today. Recently, you know, I think you heard the Surgeon General said there's a great pandemic of loneliness in our culture. People wondering if anybody cares or reaches out or notices. There are people that I know I've met through these many years in ministry who maybe have been away from a sense of God and come back, or maybe never had a very good positive experience in their childhood, or maybe just have distanced themselves and got preoccupied with a lot of other stuff in which they find it's not really that happy. So the notion of love, the notion of really believing that, really believing deep within that God's love is there with us and for us and in us and through us. And mentioning a number of different people I've met, I'm just going to share with you a couple more my own personal experiences. Some of these you've heard, but I say them in order for you to think about your own story. Because there's one psychologist that one time said, what is most deeply personal is most universal. So anything you hear here, reflect on it, and even about the people around you. So some of you know this already, that when I was a kid growing up, my biological dad abandoned my mother when she was pregnant with me. I never met him. 3 years later, she met a school teacher from Akron, Ohio. He came, and we were with him for a few years. He was alcoholic. There were struggles. There were difficulties. And I can remember, and I think I've shared this before, that a Sunday school teacher at the time, I said, I was vulnerable. I was open. He saw that I wasn't this happy little kid, and I said, I don't have a father. And I'll never forget what he said. 1955, I still remember, and stayed with me. because it was a moment I needed to hear it and open up to it and not take it for granted. But he said, yes, you do have a Father. God is your Father, and that Father will never, ever abandon you. And I believe that, in part because he conveyed that to me himself. And he was a college kid, teaching some third graders. But how much that meant. And I can remember again, and for all of us, we hear, oh, God is our Father. Yeah, God, Abba, Papa, Daddy, yes. But wow, if we really are open and see the difference that can make. Another time that struck me was years later when my mom, who stayed with me a number of years and had cancer, and I remember when she died, and I was there at the cemetery, and people had gone, and I was by myself. And I remember praying and God saying in some real way at that time, I was more open, hey, please remember two things, basically, the essence of what he was saying to me. Hey, I am still your Father, and I will always be there and be with you. And my faith gave me this sense too. Your mother, my mom, basically the Father saying, hey, love doesn't end, or death doesn't end love. That love is still there. She's with me, basically opening up to God and saying, wow, what a difference faith makes. I believe that God's love is always there and is forever. And that makes a difference in our relationships. Yes, we still grieve. Yes, we wish they were here with us. But wow, on the other hand, what this means, God's love and recognizing it. And then another aspect for me, and we can all look at this because we take our faith for granted, in addition to knowing we're beloved of God and letting other people know that, to know that we can be freed up from any guilt or shame in our life. Because that can weigh us down. And it does. So many people, counselors will say, and you probably know in your own life and other people's life, what that can do to people, how that can deeply hurt people. But I remember, again, going back when I did become Catholic, and the priest said, do you want to go to confession? And I did. And I saw what a beautiful sacrament it was, and still can be. So many don't utilize it anymore. You don't necessarily have to be serious sin, but just, for me, at the time when I talked to him, my issue was, now, we were separated from my stepdad for years, raised by my mom. But I still had resentment. I still had hostility. I still felt like punished because I didn't have the biological father that ever the people had. But I remember, again, talking to this priest. We became friends for years. That priest basically said, okay, it's understandable. You have that resentment. You've been hurt. You've carried that. Now, can you believe in this sacrament? It doesn't have to be in the sacrament. Can you believe the Lord wants to free you up and heal you of that resentment, and the Lord wants to free you from any shame or any self-centeredness that you have about your stepdad? And that happened. We prayed, and that happened. And I know if back then, when I had that confession, I might still be carrying resentment from my stepfather. And what's beautiful, years later, my mom, she became Catholic, and she was able to forgive him for the hurts that she did. And I'll remember the difference it can make. Faith makes a difference, because when he got ill with cancer, the last couple years of his life, my mom went back to where he was, lived with him, and took care of him there. She'd have never been able to do that if she hadn't forgiven him and been healed of the resentment that we shared together, because of a faith of a God who shows us this is where we find true hope, true peace, true joy, and make a difference. And so any of that, we probably all have our stories, and maybe sometimes still clinging to them. And the Lord may want to touch us even today, and be thankful we have this kind of faith that lets us know we are beloved of God no matter what. You've heard me say a number of times, the one who knows us best loves us most. Do we believe that? The one who knows us best, our God with our inner being, whatever we're carrying, he loves us most and wants to free us up from that and know we're still loved even no matter how many times we've messed up. Finally, another aspect comes out in this gospel, because we're reminded another important part of life is for people to have a sense of purpose. I know that being with college students for 17 years when I was at St. Bernard's and did ministry at the University of Akron campus. And many of the students there, whatever profession they were going into or unsure of, whatever, some of them were struggling, not just with a particular career, but underneath, what's my purpose for my life? I'm 18 or I'm 22. I'm just not sure of a purpose that's significant. And we would talk about that. And we would say, following the way of Jesus Christ, there's a purpose to especially want to bring His hope, His healing, His guidance, His peace, His joy to the people around us, in whatever circumstances we find ourselves in, whatever job. And here, just saying, that's part of what Jesus calls us to, that purpose in that gospel today that we've heard before, saying, hey, do something that makes your life matter because you make a difference in the lives of other people. Whatever you do, how you do it, why you do it, in love, and sharing not only our human love, but being able to share God's love that'll be with us and those we share with forever. But just briefly, the final comment, you heard it. Come, you who are blessed. That's us. We're blessed. And inherit the kingdom prepared for you. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. You know, many people are hungry for attention, to know somebody out there notices and cares. I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink. How many people are thirsty for justice, for feeling that some issue in their life that nobody's paying attention to needs hope and healing? I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I'll stop there. How many people in this culture, I mentioned lonely, can feel estranged? Whether it's the immigrant that we look at too often with the critical eye, or whether it's somebody else that we see that, whether a person of different color, person of different sexual orientation, whatever, that too often they can be estranged. We need to welcome. Welcome. In fact, our sign out there says, all are welcome. Doesn't mean that we necessarily have to agree with everybody about everything, but we need, as a parish community and as individuals, to be welcoming. That when people see us, they see us maybe in personal life and say, gosh, this person wants to know me. This person wants to understand me. This person wants to maybe be there to say, hey, I can care with you for this. You're not alone. So we all take a moment on this Thanksgiving weekend to be thankful we have that kind of faith that hopefully touches us and gives us what matters most, and that kind of purpose that every day, whatever we're doing, we have an opportunity for somebody else's life to be a little better, a little more just, a little more loved, because we're there to make Jesus' difference. Take a quiet moment, all of us. What do we need to remember from this? What do we need to be thankful for? Where's our purpose from day to day? God bless you.